Snoozecast, the podcast designed to help you fall asleep. Find us on snoozecast.com and follow us on Instagram @Snoozecast to find behind-the-scenes content. If you enjoy our show, please write a review on the Apple Podcasts app or share your favorite episode on social media. Also, you can share us with a friend. This episode is brought to you by Twinkling Stars. Tonight, we'll read the next part to the classic children's story Heidi, published in 1881 by Swiss author Johanna Spyri. If you'd like to listen to this continuing story in order, go to snoozecast.com/series. In the previous episode, Heidi teaches Peter how to read during the snowy winter. Then, spring comes, and the grandfather and Heidi move back up the mountain. Clara and her grandmama come to visit. Clara is carried in a sedan as she is unable to walk, and Grandmama rides a horse. We will pick up our story with Heidi showing Clara around the grounds of their alpine home. Let's get cozy. Close your eyes. Relax your body into the softness of your bed. Now, take a few deep breaths. When Clara had looked a long time at the cloudless sky above and all the rocky crags, she said longingly, "I wish I could walk round the hut to see the fir trees. If I only could see all the things you told me so much about." Heidi pushed with all her might, and behold, the chair rolled easily over the dry grass. When they had come into the little grove, Clara could not see her fill of those splendid trees that must have stood there so many, many years. Although the people had changed and vanished, they had remained the same, ever looking down into the valley. "Oh, what wonderful flowers!" exclaimed Clara again. "Whole bushes of exquisite red blossoms. Oh, if I could only pick some of those bluebells." Heidi, immediately gathering a large bunch, put them in Clara's lap. "Clara, this is really nothing in comparison with the many flowers in the pasture. You must come up once and see them. There are so many that the ground seems golden with them. If you ever sit down among them, you will feel as if you could never get up anymore. It is so beautiful." "Oh, Grandmama, do you think I can ever go up there?" Clara asked, with a wild longing in her eyes. "If I could only walk with you, Heidi, and climb round everywhere." "I'll push you," Heidi said for comfort. To show how easy it was, she pushed the chair at such a rate that it would have tumbled down the mountain if the grandfather had not stopped it at the last moment. It was time for dinner now. The table was spread near the bench, and soon everybody sat down. The grandmother was so overcome by the view and the delicious wind that fanned her cheek that she remarked, "What a wondrous place this is! I have never seen its like. But what do I see?" she continued. "I think you are actually eating your second piece of cheese, Clara." "Oh, Grandmama, it tastes better than all the things we get in town," replied the child, eagerly eating the savory dish. "Don't stop. Our mountain wind helps along where the cooking is faulty," contentedly said the old man. During the meal, the uncle and the grandmama had soon got into a lively conversation. They seemed to agree on many things and understood each other like old friends. A little later, the grandmama looked over to the west. "We must soon start, Clara, for the sun is already low. Our guides will be here shortly." Clara's face had become sad, and she entreated, "Oh, please let us stay here another hour or so. We haven't even seen the hut yet. I wish the day were twice as long." The grandmama assented to Clara's wish to go inside. When the rolling chair was found too broad for the door, the uncle quietly lifted Clara in his strong arms and carried her in. Grandmama was eagerly looking about her, glad to see everything so neat. Then, going up the little ladder to the hayloft, she discovered Heidi's bed. "Is that your bed, Heidi? What a delicious perfume! It must be a healthy place to sleep," she said, looking out through the window. The grandfather, with Clara, was coming up too, with Heidi following. Clara was perfectly entranced. "What a lovely place to sleep! Oh, Heidi, you can look right up to the sky from your bed. And what a good smell! You can hear the fir trees roar here, can't you? Oh, I never saw a more delightful bedroom." The uncle, looking at the old lady, said now, "I have an idea that would give Clara new strength to stay up here with us a little while. Of course, I only mean if you did not object. You've brought so many wraps that we can easily make a soft bed for Clara here. My dear lady, you can easily leave the care to me. I'll undertake it gladly." The children screamed for joy, and Grandmama's face was beaming. "What a fine man you are," she burst out. "I was just thinking myself that a stay here would strengthen the child, but then I thought of the care and trouble for you. And now you have offered to do it, as if it was nothing at all. How can I thank you enough, Uncle?" After shaking hands many times, the two prepared Clara's bed, which, thanks to the old lady's precautions, was soon so soft that the hay could not be felt through at all. The uncle had carried his new patient back to her rolling chair, and there they found her sitting, with Heidi beside her. They were eagerly talking of their plans for the coming weeks. When they were told that Clara might stay for a month or so, their faces beamed more than ever. The guide, with the horse, and the carriers of the chair now appeared, but the last two were not needed any more and could be sent away. When the grandmother got ready to leave, Clara called happily to her, "Oh, Grandmama, it won't be long, for you must often come and see us." While the uncle was leading the horse down the steep incline, the grandmama told him that she would go back to town. She also promised to come back from time to time. Before the grandfather had returned, Peter came racing down to the hut with all his goats. Seeing Heidi, they ran up to her in haste, and so Clara made the acquaintance of Heidi's goat friends as well. Peter, however, kept away, only sending furious looks at the two girls. When they bade him good night, he only ran away, beating the air with his stick. The end of the joyous day had come. The two children were both lying in their beds. "Oh, Heidi," Clara exclaimed, "I can see so many glittering stars, and I feel as if we were driving in a high carriage straight into the sky." "Yes, and do you know why the stars twinkle so merrily?" inquired Heidi. "No, tell me." "Because they know that God in heaven looks after us mortals, and we never need to fear. See, they twinkle and show us how to be merry, too. But Clara, we must not forget to pray to God and ask Him to think of us and keep us safe." Sitting up in bed, they then said their evening prayer. As soon as Heidi lay down, she fell asleep. But Clara could not sleep quite yet. It was too wonderful to see the stars from her bed. In truth, she had never seen them before, because in Frankfurt all the blinds were always down long before the stars came out, and at night she had never been outside the house. She could hardly keep her eyes shut, and had to open them again and again to watch the twinkling, glistening stars, till her eyes closed at last, and she saw two big, glittering stars in her dream. Chapter 21. Of further events on the Alp. The sun was just rising, and the Alm uncle was watching how mountain and dale awoke to the new day, and the clouds above grew brighter. Next, the old man turned to go back into the hut and softly climbed the ladder. Clara, having just a moment ago opened her eyes, looked about her in amazement. Bright sunbeams danced on her bed. Where was she? But soon she discovered her sleeping friend and heard the grandfather's cheery voice. "How did you sleep? Not tired?" Clara, feeling fresh and rested, said that she had never slept better in all her life. Heidi was soon awake, too, and lost no time in coming down to join Clara, who was already sitting in the sun. A cool morning breeze fanned their cheeks, and the spicy fragrance from the fir trees filled their lungs with every breath. Clara had never experienced such well-being in all her life. She had never breathed such pure, cool morning air, and never felt such warm, delicious sunshine on her feet and hands. It surpassed all her expectations. "Oh, Heidi, I wish I could always stay up here with you," she said. "Now you can see that everything is as beautiful as I told you," Heidi replied triumphantly. "Up on the Alp with Grandfather is the loveliest spot in all the world." The grandfather was just coming out of the shed with 2 full bowls of steaming snow-white milk. Handing one to each of the children, he said to Clara, "This will do you good, little girl. It comes from Schweinli and will give you strength. To your health. Just drink it," he said encouragingly, for Clara had hesitated a little. But when she saw that Heidi's bowl was nearly empty already, she also drank without even stopping. Oh, how good it was! It tasted like cinnamon and sugar. "We'll take 2 tomorrow," said the grandfather. After their breakfast, Peter arrived, while the goats were rushing up to Heidi, bleating loudly. The grandfather took the boy aside. "Just listen and do what I tell you," he said. "From now on, you must let Schweinli go wherever she likes. She knows where to get the richest herbs, and you must follow her, even if she should go higher up than usual. It won't do you any harm to climb a little more, and will do all the others good. I want the goats to give me splendid milk, remember. What are you looking at so furiously?" Peter was silent, and without more ado started off, still angrily looking back now and then. As Heidi had followed a little way, Peter called to her, "You must come along, Heidi. Schweinli has to be followed everywhere." "No, but I can't," Heidi called back. "I won't be able to come as long as Clara is with me. Grandfather has promised, though, to let us come up with you once." With those words, Heidi returned to Clara, while the goat herd was hurrying onward, angrily shaking his fists. The children had promised to write a letter to Grandmama every day, so they immediately started on their task. Heidi brought out her own little 3-legged stool, her school books, and her papers, and with these on Clara's lap, they began to write. Clara stopped after nearly every sentence, for she had to look around. Oh, how peaceful it was, with the little gnats dancing in the sun and the rustling of the trees. From time to time, they could hear the shouting of a shepherd, re-echoed from many rocks. The morning had passed, they knew not how, and dinner was ready. They again ate outside, for Clara had to be in the open air all day if possible. The afternoon was spent in the cool shadow of the fir trees. Clara had many things to relate from Frankfurt and all the people that Heidi knew. It was not long before Peter arrived with his flock, but without even answering the girl's friendly greeting, he disappeared with a grim scowl. While Schweinli was being milked in the shed, Clara said, "Oh, Heidi, I feel as if I could not wait for my milk. Isn't it funny? All my life I have only eaten because I had to. Everything always tasted to me like cod liver oil, and I have often wished that I should never have to eat at all. And now I am so hungry." "Oh, yes, I know," Heidi replied. She had to think of the days in Frankfurt when her food seemed to stick in her throat. When at last the full bowls were brought by the old man, Clara, seizing hers, eagerly drank the contents in one draught and even finished before Heidi. "Please, may I have a little more?" she asked, holding out the bowl. Nodding, much pleased, the grandfather soon refilled it. This time he also brought with him a slice of bread and butter for the children. He had gone to town that afternoon to get the butter, and his trouble was well rewarded. They enjoyed it as if it had been the rarest dish. This evening, Clara fell asleep the moment she lay down. 2 or 3 days passed in this pleasant way. The next brought a surprise. 2 strong porters came up the Alp, each carrying on his back a fresh, white bed. They also brought a letter from Grandmama, in which she thanked the children for their faithful writing and told them that the beds were meant for them. When they went to sleep that night, they found their new beds in exactly the same position as their former ones had been. Clara's rapture in her new life grew greater every day, and she could not write enough of the grandfather's kindly care and of Heidi's entertaining stories. She told her grandmama that her first thought in the morning always was, "Thank God I am still in the Alm hut." Grandmama was highly pleased at these reports and put her projected visit off a little while, for she had found the ride pretty tiring. The grandfather took excellent care of his little patient, and no day passed on which he did not climb around to find the most savory herbs for Schweinli. The little goat thrived so that everybody could see in the way her eyes were flashing. It was the 3rd week of Clara's stay. Every morning, after the grandfather had carried her down, he said to her, "Would my Clara try to stand a little?" Clara always sighed, "Oh, it hurts me so." But though she would cling to him, he made her stand a little longer every day. This summer was the finest that had been for years. Day after day, the sun shone on a cloudless sky, and at night it would pour its purple, rosy light down on the rocks and snowfields till everything seemed to glow like fire. Heidi had told Clara over and over again of all the flowers on the pasture, of the masses of golden roses and the blue flowers that covered the ground. She had just been telling it again when a longing seized her, and jumping up, she ran over to her grandfather, who was busy carving in the shop. "Oh, grandfather," she cried from afar, "won't you come with us to the pasture tomorrow? Oh, it's so beautiful up there now." "All right, I will," he replied, "but tell Clara that she must do something to please me. She must try to stand longer this evening for me." Heidi merrily came running with her message. Of course, Clara promised, for was it not her greatest wish to go up with Heidi to the pasture? When Peter returned this evening, he heard of the plan for the morrow. But for answer, Peter only growled, nearly hitting poor Thistlefinch in his anger. The children had just resolved to stay awake all night to talk about the coming day, when their conversation suddenly ceased, and they were both peacefully slumbering. In her dreams, Clara saw before her a field that was thickly strewn with light blue flowers, while Heidi heard the eagle scream to her from above, "Come, come, come." The next day dawned cloudless and fair. The grandfather was still with the children when Peter came climbing up. His goats kept a good distance from him to evade the rod, which was striking right and left. The truth was that the boy was terribly embittered and angry by the changes that had come. When he passed the hut in the morning, Heidi was always busy with the strange child, and in the evening it was the same. All summer long, Heidi had not been up with him a single time. It was too much. And today she was coming at last, but again in company with this hateful stranger. It was then that Peter noticed the rolling chair standing near the hut. After carefully glancing about him, he rushed at the hated object and pushed it down the incline. The chair fairly flew away and had soon disappeared. Peter's conscience smote him now, and he raced up the Alp, not daring to pause till he had reached a blackberry bush. There he could hide when the uncle might appear. Looking down, he watched his fallen enemy tumbling downwards, downwards. Sometimes it was thrown high up in the air, to crash down again the next moment, harder than ever. Now the stranger would have to travel home, and Heidi would be his again. But Peter had forgotten that a bad deed always brings a punishment. Heidi just now came out of the hut. The grandfather, with Clara, followed. Heidi at first stood still, and then, running right and left, returned to the old man. "What does this mean? Have you rolled the chair away, Heidi?" he asked. "I am just looking for it everywhere, Grandfather. You said it was beside the shop door," said the child, still hunting for the missing object. A strong wind was blowing, which at this moment violently closed the shop door. "Grandfather, the wind has done it," exclaimed Heidi eagerly. "Oh dear, if it has rolled all the way down to the village, it will be too late to go today. It will take us a long time to fetch it." If it has rolled down there, we shall never get it any more, for it will be smashed to pieces," said the old man, looking down and measuring the distance from the corner of the hut. "I don't see how it happened," he remarked. "What a shame. Now I'll never be able to go up to the pasture," lamented Clara. "I'm afraid I'll have to go home now. Oh, what a pity." "You can find a way for her to stay, Grandfather, can't you?" "We'll go up to the pasture today, as we have planned. Then we shall see what further happens." The children were delighted, and the grandfather lost no time in getting ready. First, he fetched a pile of covers, and, seating Clara on a sunny spot on the dry ground, he got their breakfast. "I wonder why Peter is so late today," he said, leading his goats out of the shed. Then, lifting Clara up on one strong arm, he carried the covers on the other. "Now march," he cried. "The goats come with us." That suited Heidi, and with one arm round Schweinli and the other round Barely, she wandered up. Her little companions were so pleased at having her with them again that they nearly crushed her with affection. What was their astonishment when, arriving on top, they saw Peter already lying on the ground with his peaceful flock about him.